everyone, and welcome back to the channel. If you're new around here, I'm Bobby. If you're accustomed being here, what's up? I know something is different. I created like a separate model for reading Reddit stories and doing anything that I guess is not like gaming related. I know that there are some kinks that I have to work out with the model, like the hair clipping through the sweater. But yeah, all assets, by the way, are free on Viroid Studio. So I didn't like take anything from any other like user, but we could take a little look at what it looks like. It's a very simple model. Very, very simple. And I wanted to keep it simple because, you know, and then we have the tights underneath. I was kind of going for like that kind of dark academia kind of look. Yeah. So that I have the nice sweater, the very earthy colors and whatnot. Anyway, enough about my outfit. We are here for Reddit stories. So the whole theme behind the Reddit stories today will be best stories on Reddit. So I choose a couple that I have heard of but never read. And I also chose one that I have read a couple of times, and it is my personal favorite Reddit story. Now, I was never really into Reddit before, like in the genesis in the early days of Reddit. I was not into it, but here we go. We're gonna look at the best Reddit stories that has kind of made it to the Hall of Fame. So without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so first story up, I'm sure you all have heard of the poop knife story. So I had to try and find the original post, and it goes, my family poops big. Maybe it's genetic, maybe it's our diet, but everyone births giant logs of crap. That's an interesting way to put it. Just off the bat, that's a really interesting way to put it. If anyone has laid a mega poop, you know that sometimes it won't flush. It lays across the hole in the bottom of the bowl, and the vortex of draining water merely gives it a spin as it mocks you. I like the writing here. Growing up, this was a common enough occurrence that our family had a poop knife. It was an old rusty kitchen knife that hung on a nail in the laundry room, only to be used for that purpose. It was normal to walk through the hallway and have someone call out, "Hey, can you give me the poop knife?" I thought it was a standard kit. You have your plunger, your toilet brush, and your poop knife. That is not normal, my guy. Fast forward to 22. It's been a day or two between poops, and I'm over at my friend's house. My friend was the local dealer and always had guests, quote unquote, guests over because you can't buy weed without sitting on your ass and sampling it for an hour. I excuse myself and lay a gigantic turd. I look down and see that it's sideways one, so I crack the door and call out for my friend. He arrives and I ask him for his poop knife. My what? Your poop knife, I say. I need to use it, please. What the is a poop knife? Obviously, he has one, but maybe he calls it by a more delicate name, a fecal cleaver, a dung divider, a guana glaive. No, those names are quite good though. I'll give him that. I explain what it is I want and why I want it. He starts giggling, then laughing. Then lots of people start laughing. It turns out the music stopped and everyone heard my pleas through the door. It also turns out that none of them had poop knives. It was just my up family with our up bowels. FML. I told this to my wife last night, who was amused and horrified at the same time. It turns out that she did not know what a poop knife was and had been using the old rusty knife hanging in the utility closet as a basic utility knife. Oh my god. Oh no. That's terrible. Thankfully, she didn't cook with it, but used it to open Amazon boxes. She will be getting her own utility knife now. Edit. Common question. Why was this not in the bathroom instead of the laundry room? Answer. We only had one poop knife, and the laundry room was central to all three bathrooms. I have no idea why we didn't have three poop knives. All I know is that we didn't. We had the one. Possibly because my father was notoriously cheap about the weirdest things. So, yes, we shared our poop knife. Okay, first off, like, it has to be some kind of health condition that that this is happening, because if every time you poop or every time you lay one out, this is what happens. I think something's wrong with your body, my guy. That's why they said maybe it's genetic. It definitely has to be genetic, because this is not a shared experience. This is not a shared human experience at all. And I feel really bad for him because he grew up thinking that it should be a shared human experience. Okay, what does the comments even say? Okay, so somebody said a true classic. It is a true classic. Next one, somebody said, um, oh no, wait, I think there's another addition to this story. Yes, there's another addition to this story. Okay. Here goes. I'll put it up on the screen still. My friend's sister laid a huge turd in the toilet. She couldn't get it to flush, so she just casually strolls into the kitchen while me and my buddy are watching Friday night videos and grabs a pocket knife from the junk drawer. Goes back towards the bathroom. My buddy was, hey, what the F you need a knife for? So she says the toilet won't flush. My dad hears this jumping up and runs down to the bathroom and screams, who the shit this turd? Maybe it's supposed to be who the shit did this turd or laid this turd. Which brings mom into the bathroom. She freaks out. Now, all five of us are in the throne room in admiration of a magnificent turd. The dad asks, what is the knife for? And his sister goes, it's what I used to cut them. Yeah, that's what she said. It was silent until my mom asked, how long have you been cutting turds with that knife? I am dying. My friend is in tears. Well, since we were all here, I guess the secret is out, so I get massive turds on my period, mom. Oh, so this one is based on a time of the month. Okay. So for about 6 years, mom. She goes to leave and her dad grabs her and says, cut the cheese, sweet pea. And that's your knife now. That's it. I can't believe I'm laughing so hard. She is in tears. Her mom is mortified, and her father was trying to be supportive. My buddy and I are being total jackasses. Her father pulls us aside and threatens to kick the shit out of us if a word of Sir Thirdly. I'm sorry. If a word of Sir Thirdly of a Bombertown gets out of the house. We never said a word about it outside of their house, but we were brutal to her at home. Oh my gosh. There's more? Oh my god, please. There's more. Okay, there's one more. I'll read this last one. Okay, maybe I was wrong. Maybe this is a human experience I just not part of. One day in my college lecture class, the guy next to me leans over and whispers, you ever heard of the poop cutter? Caught off guard, I say no. He replied, I'll tell you what I'm going to do for you. I'm going to push out a third, but only half. Then I'm going to cut the third off with with the power of my sphincter. After that, I'll shimmy down. Ew, I don't want to read this one. Okay, all right. It's time to commit. Then I'm going to cut the third off with the power of my sphincter. After that, I'll shimmy it down my pant leg till it drops on the floor. When class is over, that steamy gem is all yours. Enjoy. He never said another word to me all semester. What? What did I? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That's is that supposed to be a gift? that supposed to be a gift? Because no, no, thank you, no, thank you. I don't want that. I'm a pass. Okay, all right. Well, I guess what are my thoughts on this? My thoughts are that I've never personally had this happen to me. I don't want to get TMI, but sometimes, like around my time of the month, yes, my poops are weird. I'll give them that. They are weird, right? Because, during your time of month or during your period, women should understand this. Sometimes you get ass cramps. So add the ass cramps to pooping. It's kind of a uncomfortable or sometimes painful experience. So that's the most that I could say on this topic. But no, I have never heard of a poop knife beside this whole Reddit story or besides this whole like phenomenon. This is new. This is new. Have any of you guys known about that? Because if you have, I'm really concerned for you and your asshole. Anyway, next story. Okay, so this next story comes from r slash ask Reddit. It's 12 years old, so this is an old one. And this is when you would ask questions, and then I guess the answer was very, very wild. So the question was, what is the laziest thing you've ever done? So this is one of the answers. It says, late to the party, but this one is too good to pass up. I was once on a US military ship having breakfast in the wardroom, officer's lounge, when the operations office ops walked in. This guy was the definition of not a morning person. He's still half asleep, blurry eyed, basically a zombie with a bagel. He sits down across from me to eat this bagel and is just barely conscious. My back is to the outboard side of the ship, and the morning sun is blazing in one of the potholes, putting a big bright ass circle of light right on his barely conscious face. He's squinting and chewing and basically just remembering how to be alive for the day. It's painful to watch. I agree, I am not a morning person either. But then Zombie Ops stops chewing, slowly picks up the phone and dials the bridge. In this well known I'm still totally asleep voice, he says, "Hey, it's Ups. Could you shift your bar part? Yeah. 165? Thanks." And puts the phone down. And then he just sits there, squinting, waiting. And then, ever so slowly, I realize that the big blazing spot of sun has begun to slide off the zombie's face and onto the wall behind him. After a moment, it clears his face and he blinks slowly a few times, and the brilliant beauty of what I've just witnessed begins to overwhelm me. By ordering the bridge to adjust the ship's back and front patrol by about 15 degrees, he changed our course just enough to reposition the sun off of his face. Wow, that is, some people say it's lazy, but I must say it's a little tactical. He's literally just redirected thousands of tons of steel and hundreds of people so that he get the sun out of his eyes while he eats his bagel. I am in awe. He slowly picks up his bagel, and for a moment I'm terrified at the thought that his own genius may escape him, that he may never appreciate the epic brilliance of his laziness, since he is not going to wake up for another hour. But between his next bites, he pauses, looks at me, and gives me the faintest sly grin before returning to gnaw slowly on his zombie bagel. Okay, so people say that he is lazy, but I'm gonna say he's a little bit of a genius. He's a little bit of a genius. My guy knew exactly what he was doing and he executed it really well. I mean, typically, he could have just moved to the side so that, but he chose not to. He decided to call the order and just move the ship. That's interesting, though. That's interesting. What did the comments say? The comments say, I think this is one of the greatest things I've ever read. Yeah, it kind of is. Yeah, I agree. Next story. So The one that I'm going to read now is a two-parter. So when I researched it, because I looked up for like Hall of Fame Reddit stories, right? Um, we have two parts. We have a male perspective and a female perspective. So we are going to read the male perspective first because I think that one came out first, and then the other one came out, right? So this is from the subreddit r/today I fucked up, right? So today I fucked up by throwing my steak out a window. Last night, my wife's boss from her brand new job invited us over for dinner. On the drive over, my wife reiterated many times to me just how important it was to make a good impression. I scoffed and arrogantly informed my silly wife that I always made good impression. I don't like that you call her silly, but I'ma let it slide. My wife's boss is a single lady in her 50s, so it was just the three of us. We chitter chatted over drinks and salads and seemed to really be hitting it off. She laughed at my well timed, perfectly appropriate jokes, and my wife seemed pleased. Soon, she brought out the main course, a nice, big, juicy steak for each of us. As I began to cut into my steak, I was discouraged to discover how undercooked the steak was. Oh no, oh no. Now, I've had my fair share of rare steak. I prefer medium, but I can handle rare. This was 7 minutes on a hot grill sort of rare. That's ridiculous. I'm sorry. I know people have like levels to how well they like their steak done. I can't do well done because that's too chewy for me, but I also can't do like how people do like rare. I can't do that. Like it has to be the perfect balance. That's just my opinion. I probably could have resuscitated the cow had I tried. Instead, I sat there fidgeting with my knife and fork, worrying about how I was going to get away with not eating the steak. Claim veganism. No, I'd already feigned great enthusiasm upon seeing the steak. Yeah, yeah. Just then, our hostess excused herself to the kitchen to take care of some dessert preparations. As I looked across the fancy dining room table at the open window of this third story apartment, a cartoon light bulb appeared over my head. Oh no. Nice writing though. I knew I had to be decisive. Realizing that she could return at any moment, I grabbed the steak with my hand, off gently shook off the juice, and executed a perfect throw right through the center of the open window. Oh no. Here's the big fuck up. The window wasn't open. It was the cleanest freaking window you've ever seen in your life. That is until my mostly raw slab of steak slammed up against it and slowly slid down, leaving a trail of bloody juice in its wake. Oh, that's embarrassing. That's so embarrassing. My wife, whose steak was a nice medium rare and was unaware of my predicament, which you should have told her at least, turned jaw dropped and stared at me like I was an alien from another planet. This look then slowly morphed into more of a there's no place on this planet you can ever hide from me expression of demonic anger. Of course, she would be mad. My wife's boss heard the thud of the stake on the window impact and came quickly. She took in the scene, the stake sitting on the windowsill, the bloody trail, my empty plate, and then gave me an inquisitive, puzzled look. How is he gonna cover for this? Oh, that's what I want to know. What's the aftermath? How would you explain that the stake was even missing if you executed it, though? Anyway, I just didn't know what to say. It felt like a minute of silence, but was probably 3 or 4 seconds. Finally, the best I could manage was, I'm so sorry. I am such a klutz. I didn't know. I was just cutting it and it slipped. Just ask my wife, I really am a klutz, right, honey? No help coming from that direction. Oh shit, she leave him. She threw him under the bus. I will clean this up. I can't believe this. I'm so sorry, etc., etc. Both women continued to stare at me like I had escaped from the loony bin. As I smeared the blood around the window with my cloth napkin, dusted off the steak, and continued to mutter my incoherent explanation, I know no one was buying this story. Yeah, who would? I knew what I had to do. I sheepishly returned to my seat, proceeded to eat every bite of that disgusting, cold, chewy, bloody raw steak. I remained pretty quiet the rest of the evening. My wife's only two words to me since the incident were, I'm fine. TLDR, this is just a little recap of what he actually did, right? Tried to sneakily throw my undercooked steak through an open window only to find out it wasn't open. Edit. Thanks, kind Redditors. Update. Just got the just got the first post. I'm fine. Communication from my wife via text, who is at work. Good news, boss's name. And I just had a good laugh over how much of a fucking idiot you are. I hope you know you will never live this down. Love you, moron. Okay, so at least there's a good ending here, right? But I am very curious to know what the wife's point of view is, because remember, I said that there are two points of view here. There is the male point of view, which is the husband's, and then there's the female point of view, or the wife's point of view here, right? So let's look at the wife's point of view. Today I fucked up by allowing my husband to come to dinner at my boss's house. This actually took place a couple of years ago. I had just gotten a brand new job that I was really excited about. So I was delighted when my boss, who I had been trying to establish a rapport with, invited me and my husband over to her home for dinner. Well, mostly delighted. My husband is, well, he's the sweetest, but he has a history of doing really dumb shit. Because of this, I was worried about him coming along. She knows him so well. She knows him so incredibly well. Oh my gosh. By the time the day of the dinner arrived, I had become so anxious about it that I actually floated the idea by my boss that I wasn't sure if he would be able to make it. She was clearly taken aback and responded, "Oh no, I really hope he can. I have a dinner of three all ready to go." Upon seeing her dismay, I assured her that I was sure he would find a way to be there. Well, we made it over to her apartment on time, and things actually started out really, really well. It was actually just the three of us, which surprised me somewhat, but made me a little less concerned about my husband, as crowds really tend to bring out his unpredictability. I had just started to finally relax and was a couple bites into a deliciously cooked steak when things took a horrible, horrible turn. My boss had just stepped into the kitchen to check on the dessert when I noticed something odd out of the corner of my eye. It was one of those things where you know something strange is happening in your peripheral, but you're not sure what. You have to look over and focus your gaze to really comprehend it. I look over at my husband and see him holding his steak in his hand, covering it just an inch or two above his plate. Before I had a chance to fully comprehend what I was seeing and verbalize something that might have saved all of us from the coming horror, he threw his steak, baseball style, across the room, straight into the dining room window. It hit the window, making a loud sound, and slowly slid down. Now, my husband does dumb shit. I already told you that. But he's not a crazy person. Usually, when he does dumb shit, I at least understand what he's thinking. There's usually some semblance of rhyme or reason to the dumb shit. In this case, I was just dumbfounded. I couldn't believe my eyes. I couldn't wrap my head around what was going on. I stared at him with what must have been the most confused look and watched as he stared back at me, an expression of utter horror painted across his face. That is so funny. I couldn't make any sense of what was happening, but I also didn't have time to try. I heard the footsteps of my boss coming to see what the sound was. It suddenly sunk in that it didn't matter why he did it, and we were all about to come face to face with a very awkward situation. I could feel the anger flush through my face. For a brief moment, I contemplated trying to help my husband get out of this. But no, this was his dumb shit bed, and he would lie in it. Not like there was any possible recovery anyway. So she did throw him under the bus. My boss walks in and sees the steak lying on the windowsill. There's the fucking longest, most awkward pause where we all just sit there frozen. My boss and I are staring at my husband, forcing the ball into his court as the cringe just hangs in the air like an ocean fog. Really good writing, though, I'll give her that. What does she do for work? Is she an author or something? Or writer? That's nice. He finally manages to mutter some incoherent garbage about being a klutz and even tries to get me to back him up. I leave his ass out to dry in the deafening silence. He makes a poor attempt at cleaning the window and retrieves his steak. Mercifully, my boss asks me a question about work, and we both dive eagerly into conversation. We all resume the rest of the evening pretending that he wasn't there, a sort of unspoken agreement by all that this is the only way to move forward. Yeah. As soon as we got into the car, my husband turned into a nervous chatterbox trying to explain himself. Turns out the dumbass didn't like the way the steak was cooked, rare, and get this, he thought the window was open. My husband, ladies and gentlemen, tried to chuck his steak out a 3-story window. He thought that was a reasonable solution to being served an undercooked steak. Wow. A year or so later, my boss hosted a Christmas party for the company at her newly built home. My best friend Jenny was my plus one. Oh, okay. Well, that's not what that's. We got like an extension a little bit too. So she's not taking him out again. She's really afraid of what he will do. Okay, so TLDR. Took my husband to dinner. Okay, so we don't need to read that. Note, my husband told his Today I fucked up from his perspective a couple years ago, and it was a popular post. Someone suggested I should tell it from my perspective. Hope our discomfort brings a little joy to your fine Redditors. Yes, that's true. Okay, so I don't falter for saying he does dumb things. That just happens, right? And it's true. He did do it without really giving it a second thought. He had the initial thought, and then he said, no, I need to get rid of this. This is the only way I could salvage the situation. He didn't say, you know what, I should probably run this by my wife and have a discussion and ask her what to do. You understand? He didn't even think about that. So I don't see it as he does insane things. I think he wanted things to go so well for his wife that he thought that talking to the host about the undercooked meat or the undercooked meal might ruin things for his wife. So, like, he was not only doing it to cover his ass, but he was kind of doing it to help out the wife a little bit, you know? So, I could respect it. It was stupid, but I could respect it, you know? I definitely could respect it. It comes from today I fucked up. So today I fucked up, secretly eating shrooms while my wife was asleep in a house full of cats. If you know this story, you know where it's going. Best story on Reddit. I'm just saying. My opinion. This happened a good long while ago, so not really today. It was April when I started this journey. During the winter, I became a member of a magic mushroom forum and was learning all I could about growing magic mushrooms. I tried it once before and grew only a yellowish green mush that smelled of sweaty socks, but this time would be different. I had a spore print sent to me and was off to the races. I had tried mushrooms once before, about 10 years prior, and the experience was rather enjoyable. I have had way too many bad experiences with LSD to ever think about trying it, but from what I remember, the mushroom experience was much less chaotic and harsh for me than the majority of my acid trips had been. So he's a drug or narcotic like connoisseur, right? Keep that in mind. After following every tip I could, after following every tip I could gather, and about a month and a half of waiting, I have viable mushrooms drying in the food dehydrator. The whole journey from spore print to fruit was done for reasons I don't yet have a great grasp on. I was thinking at the time that growing them would impart some spiritual meaning into my experience. It had been a long, long time since I had taken any illegal substance, and I wanted it to be special in some way. Growing them myself was an attempt at providing that, I guess. The night I took them, I really wasn't planning on doing so. I was bored out of my wits and chatting with online friends. I told them I was going to eat my mushrooms, but I didn't know how much to eat without a scale. I took a few pics of my intended dose and posted them and immediately got advice to cut that dose in half. So, with my wife asleep, I went down to the kitchen and made a concoction of purple slushy and powdered mushrooms and gulped it down. I came back up and told the chatters that the deal was done, that I was taking a shower and would be back once the fun started. In the shower, about 5 minutes, when I felt a rush like I was. I'm sorry. I had to laugh. I had to laugh. I know where the story going. Sorry. Sorry. In the shower, about 5 minutes, when I felt a rush like my consciousness was being pulled away from my body, I was fighting to keep it with me. It felt as though I had let it fly away. Oh no, that's a typo. It felt as though if I had let it fly away, I would have had a full out of body experience, but for some reason, I felt compelled to hold on to it. I quickly turned off the water and looked down at my feet. They seemed miles away. That was when it hit me that the shrooms were kicking in. My guy thought he was levitating. That's all. Out of the shower. Okay, so this post, because it's one of the old ones from like 10 years ago, we have some like, some edits to make in terms of me reading it because it may not make a lot of sense. So bear with me, right? I got out of the shower and I put on the same clothes I came in with and headed upstairs. The shower is in the basement of the house and there is a door at the top of the stairs. That's an interesting place to put a shower. Is that normal? I don't know. I don't have a basement or anything like that. I never grew up in a house with a basement, so I don't know if that's unusual, but it seems unusual to me. Opening the door, the light from the kitchen blasted my eyes, and I got a good gauge of how far along in the experience I was. I could see the kitchen door. I could see that the kitchen door looked smooth and had a liquid like texture. He was so high. But before I could survey any more, my black cat ran down in the basement. I didn't want to forget about him down there, and I never really thought that I could just leave the door open and shoo any members of our herd that wandered down there after my trip. I trudged down the stairs after him and scooped him up and started back up the stairs. Halfway up, a brown blur flew down the stairs as another cat dove to the basement. I tossed the black one on in the kitchen and went after the brown one. Whilst picking up the brown one, the black one came back down the stairs again, and I scooped him up too. Now I'm carrying two cats up the stairs. You see, now people don't believe me when I say cats are assholes. They could be assholes sometimes. I think that they knew that homie was high and they were doing all of this just to mess with him. Let's be completely real about this. At the top of the stairs, the door is wide open, and I see my other three cats had come to investigate the commotion. As I made the final push to the top, they all jumped into action like they planned it in advance. You see what I mean? I started laughing hysterically, let go of the cats in my arms, and sat on the top step as I watched all the cats bounce down the stairs. I found the whole situation so funny. Here I am coming up hard on mushrooms. I can feel the confusion building every second, and now I have to figure out a way of getting all five cats out of the basement. You see, now, if I'm being real with you, like if I was in that situation, because I've never done shrooms before, right? But say if I was in that situation and I was like high out of my mind, I honestly would have just looked at the cats and say, all right, all they want to do whatever all they want to do, I will leave all they down there. And I'll leave the door open so they could come up if they want to. Right? I know that he was worried that they may get trapped there because somebody might close the door, but I would have given up. My brain would have given up. By the time I'd collected myself and devised a plan, my face was hot and objects were starting to move. He's starting to hallucinate. Time dilation had manifested and minutes were seeming to take longer and longer. My plan was to go down and capture one cat at a time and usher them up the stairs. Once I got to five, the task would be complete. I raced down and grabbed the first cat I came across, and I ran to the top to the landing and tossed it pretty forcefully up the last three steps into the kitchen so it would get the point that I didn't want them down there. Back down I went and did the same thing. That's two. Down and three to go. I was getting more confused by the minute, and on the fourth cat, I had forgot how many cats I had previously ushered up the stairs. Facepalm. So my boy forget how to count. On my way back down, I decided to count the cats downstairs. That would let me know how many were upstairs. Unfortunately, the whole time I had neglected one key detail in my foolproof plan. The door was still open. Just as I reached the basement floor, the whole herd were stampeding down again. Plan A was an utter failure. Formulated just as quickly as Plan A was Plan B. Cats have got names, right? I will count the cats as I bring them up and remember the name of each cat so that I don't lose track like the last time. Brilliant! I thump back down the stairs and grab Punchy, the black one, and take him up the stairs. Quickly tries to run back down and I push him back and close the door. Back down the stairs, I grab another cat, Sammy, cat number 2. I think as I put her on the stairs and closed the door behind me. At this point, my mind was worn out. Things were moving very well, and walls were waves in them. And walls have waves in them and on them. It was all but impossible to keep my mind on the task at hand. Those two things, coupled with the fact that the time dilation is making the last 5 minutes chasing these beasts, I nearly call the cats bastards, I apologize, beasts feel like I've been at it for hours, is making this fool's errand about as much as my brain could handle in this current state. I trudge on trying to complete this task and grab another cat. But again, at the top of the stairs, I forget where I was in the order. I put the cat upstairs and try to count the cats up there to give me an idea of how many were left. But of course, they were not in the kitchen anymore. And again, It escapes me that if I just keep bringing cats until I run out of cats to retrieve, I will be through with this clusterfuck. But this poor guy, his brain. Unable to think past my current predicament, I race around up the stairs looking for the cats that I have brought up, and they were nowhere to be found. My state has grown worse, and I start thinking that maybe they got outside, but there was no way they could get outside because no one opened the door. The door! I forgot to close the basement door. Oh, explicit. I'm not gonna say it. I don't want to say so much in a room, you too. I ran back into the kitchen and down the stairs for the 50 quadrillionth time, and bam, there they were, all five of them, safe and sound. I had found the missing cats. Hallelujah. They weren't outside. My wife would have killed me if they were gone. Me, all high end shit, and the cats go missing. I might as well pack my shit and go. What a relief. I love my kitties. Kiss, kiss, kiss. Wait. Are they still in the basement? I'm not gonna read that. But he has a crash out, basically. He has a crash out. Okay, I'll do the crash out. Are they still in the basement? When I tell you I love this story so much. Okay. I'm done. My mental ability is gone. Each trip up and down felt like an eternity. I had only just enough energy left to get upstairs to the couch. I kneel by the couch and think about what I am going to do. I am mentally exhausted because apparently counting to five is impossible while on shrooms. My mind racing to come up with a solution to this impossible problem. And never once did I think of just leaving them down there until they found something more entertaining to do than drive me out of my effing mind. The white flag was up. It was over. I needed the big gun. It was 2 or 3 a.m., and she had to get up to go to work in the morning. But I had no choice. I needed an adult. I have to wake my wife. She would make it all better. She will tame those damn hellions and all will be fine. But it wasn't fine. I went upstairs to our room and woke her in the gentlest way possible by jumping on the bed and yelling, "Help! I took mushrooms. 5 cats in the basement and I can only count to 4." Not the way I had envisioned it going down in my head, but I was happy to get that much out without forgetting the reason I woke her up in the first place. Sleepily, she marched down the stairs and I led her to the kitchen where the basement door was still wide open. All I could do was stand at the door and point down the stairs. I think I may have whimpered a little too with my gesture. She was not amused. I thought I was finally going to get closure. She would get the cats from the basement and I would be saved. But no, my savior turned into my tormentor, as she said the only words in the world that would crush me into an even more pitiful state. "Well, go get 'em," she said. She didn't understand that I was fighting this fight for what seemed like days now and wanted nothing more than to curl up in the corner and cry until I fell asleep. She had no clue how close I was to a breakdown. My guy, you had a crash out like a little bit before. I think you're already there. He's already there, right? Tears welled up as I crossed the threshold of the basement door and descended again into my personal hell. I scooped up a kitty and carried it slowly upstairs, setting it down on the kitchen floor. "One," my wife said in a long, drawn out voice, like she was talking to a 2-year-old. Back down I went and grabbed another bundle of joy, quote unquote, and slinked up the stairs only to be shamed again by a long drawn out two. By the third cat, short audible poo poo sounds were coming from me as I was almost at the breaking point. My wife had begun to laugh at me and seemed to laugh harder each time I came up, even more beaten than before. When the last cat came up, I was greeted by a sighing 5. And now, was that so hard? From my wife. I tried to apologize, but she waved me off with a stern, we'll talk about this in the morning, and walked upstairs to bed. The cat ordeal was over, but the trip was far from it. I was immensely grateful to my online buddies who talked me into halving the dose because the rest of the night was filled with confusion and mind fuckery and intense time dilation, sorry. Not really not really a bad trip as bad trips go, but not at all enjoyable. I think I can cross mushies off the list of viable boredom relievers. I won't be doing them again anytime soon, and that is for sure. Okay, so the update is quite long, and I don't really want to read the update. So I think that that's it for that story. But I think that y'all can understand why this is my favorite story. I know it was a long read or a long listen for some of you guys, but it was amazing. I've read this entire thing minus the updates, like about, as I said, about 2 to 3 times before. So these were, I guess, Hall of Fame Reddit stories. If you guys have any suggestions or any ideas for any Reddit stories, any topics that you want me to go through, any subreddits that you want me to go through, feel free to let me know in the comments. Also, join my Discord where you can read these stories on your own and also the stories that I covered like earlier in previous like Reddit sessions, right? So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you liked the video, be sure to like the video and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!